Hello class, Professor Gabor here. Um, we're entering week 14. That means there's this week and next week and that's it for the class. I want to show you a few things. One, the Hawks. If you're in Hawks and you go to the course and let's say I don't know what I'm doing, I can do help, I can do live support, live tutoring. Three things. I don't know how often the live tutoring, I never clicked on that. But if I go to help, it takes me to the Hawks Learning help and support page. And you can call in from basically 7 to 9 Central Time, it's Eastern Time, at this phone number, or there's a chat that you can do 24/7. And you can't see it because it's down here. But if I was to close this, let's move this over a little bit. And I close that so you can see it. Need some help? Live chat. Just click on it. And I don't know what the wait is. They tell me it's not long, but they tell you it's not long, and who knows how long it takes. Anyway, so there you have it. I think you should take advantage of that. People send me problems. Oh, I was doing this problem and I got the right answer, but Hawks Learning told me I got the wrong answer. And then when I checked what the right answer was, it was the same answer I gave. And why did it do that? Well, you could write me and then I have to go and write them. Or you could just call them directly and say, hey, unfair to me, fix it, please, or help me fix it. Anyway, there you go. So let's go back to the class and let's go back to we're in week 14. And notice I have a mess of stuff here that's not in green that you can't see. Well, I probably should make you see that. You want that. So I'll make the week live, and we don't want that, and we don't want that. So now you're seeing behind the curtain how we set up Canvas. All right, we're covering chapter 12, chapter 13. There's video lectures for both. Part of chapter 13 is something called public goods. I have a separate presentation and lecture on that, mercifully shorter. These are all about 36, I don't know how long they are, but they're not the hour-length ones that'll bore you to death. The homework, go to Hawks Learning, do 12, do 13, do the section exercises, and the chapter quiz. I've provided two discussions. One is on the carbon tax, on the negative externality, which is called pollution. And here's some solutions. There's some readings from a variety of newspapers on carbon taxes and cap and trade and all this. And your first one, you have to say, how would you try to control carbon emissions? By a carbon tax, cap and trade, or some other method or scheme? I guess right now we're controlling it quite well by having everybody stay home and nobody drive. Feel free to use other resources to support your argument. I said comment on two other classmates. That's the same exercise I use in a graduate class. Go ahead, comment on two others, and I'll make it worth 25 points. If you need the points, here's your opportunity. I'll make it worth 25 points. It's the end of the semester. I'm okay with that, so I'll save it. There you go. Let's go back. And I go to week 14 again. And I put another one. This is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting discussion, I think. It's about affordable housing. There's a couple articles here. One, California housing crisis, working but on the brink of homelessness. I can only imagine, this article I think is a year old. I'm not sure where it's from. Yeah, it's from NPR, and it was 2018, so it's like 2 years old at this point. I think this is probably even worse now, if with this COVID pandemic, and who suffers the most? The people at the lowest rung of the economic ladder. Anyway, And then there's another article here that, do we let market forces eventually work out the housing crisis for poor people as outlined in this article? Or should the government get actively involved? Should they build housing themselves, or should they have subsidized housing? And we know when you have subsidized housing, you will end up with a shortage of housing, at least according to what we studied earlier in this course. So it's like a minimum wage kind of discussion. Where do you stand? How should we do it? How should we pay for it? What should we do? Maybe you should build one of these in your backyard, which is these micro houses. You basically put a shed that's a livable shed and that a homeless person could live in. You want to do that? Do you want a homeless person living in your backyard? When I lived in Connecticut, we had a guy that lived basically in a 1990s version of a one-room house, basically, that was on the 2-acre lot of another house. And he rented it from them from, I think is ridiculously cheap. And he was my neighbor. And I talked to him all the time, and he lived there, and he couldn't have afforded to live in any of the houses within probably a half mile in a radius from where he lived. And he minded his own business. He had a dog. I think he went hunting in the woods once in a while. I don't know if he was supposed to do that, but he was a nice guy. He minded his own business. And he lived. And I think he was a UPS driver. So anyway, look at that kind of stuff. Think about it. Towards the end of the class, how do you solve these big problems? I want to see. And I think I made this one worth 10 points. Well, you want me to make that worth more at this end of the term? Let's bump it up to 15. Do a good job. I won't give you 15 for just slapping any old thing together. So it's not really a paper. These aren't really papers, but they're kind of like mega discussions. So you have to write, it's like short answers on an exam. Since we don't have short answers on exams, consider these like exam 4 short answer questions. Okay, that's it. There'll be some more discussions probably next week, and I may have an optional paper for those that think they want to raise their grade a little bit, and I'll explain more about that next week. Thank you so much, and talking to you soon.